Well, good evening, everyone. How's it going? I hope you guys are doing well. Sports Talk Tech is back for another live show. Lots to talk about. Track and field is always that kind of sport where you get a lot of things on the track, obviously on the road as well. So we want to touch on a few of those things this evening. And importantly, too, there's a few off the track discussions that often come up, which, we don't necessarily want to talk about, but you have to talk about because of the significance of some of these cases in terms of anti-doping. But it's a big week for the sport as well. Most of the athletes who are involved with the World Indoor Championships are on their way to Poland. They're maybe already there, and it's going to be a fantastic, I think, World Indoor Championships. I hope many of you are gearing up for that. I'm certainly looking forward to that starting on Friday, early Friday, if you're in Eastern Standard Time or wherever you are in the world. So it's gonna be a bit of a challenge for some people to get up and watch, but I'll be watching. I'm also going to be doing a watch along, and so I'm looking forward to that as well. We'll be doing some watch alongs for the evening sessions for sure. Particularly, we might do some recaps after the morning session because I'm not quite sure how many people want to be doing a watch along at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. depending on what part of the world you are. So that might be a bit of a challenge at first, but I'm looking forward to that. And if time permits, and if people are in the house and want to talk about some of the previews for some of the events there, we can look at it. It's laden with a lot of talent. I think lots of Olympic champions are there. Lots of defending champions are there. But not everybody shows up for the World Indoor Championships. And especially in a year like this, you may get different things going on. But before I get into that, and before we get into some previews of that, if we so desire, I want to thank you guys for coming on. Don't forget to certainly like the video as usual. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and this is a space for everybody dealing in track and field, obviously. So I want to start off with the Adjah Hajj case. So Adjah Hajj had a weekend, if you want to put it this way. It's one of the storylines of the weekend because at the indoor championships for the NCAA Division 1, she had a stellar performance. She won the 200 meters, very good time, excellent time. And she also finished second in the 60 meters, single-handedly there helping Georgia with 18 points, securing a team title. So when you look at that, you say that's a fabulous performance, and we know how talented Adjah Hajj is. But the challenge of the weekend for her was that at the same time that came out, at the same time she had a splendid performance, the Athletics Integrity Unit announced that she had already served a doping ban, right? She served a ban for 2 years, a sanction that started in 2024, and she was suspended for probably 7 months, and a lot of cooperation and involved in the case, and she was eligible to return to the track, and that's why we saw her all indoor season, and she's been looking brilliant so far. But I want to kind of touch on some of the context of the suspension, what we know, but also put it into that kind of larger conversation around the likes of Gerald Feary, who many of you, if you're following this case, everything centers around him and his time as a track and field coach, and other athletes that have been involved. So we'll see what's going on. Hey everybody, thanks for coming through. How you doing? Jules 876, just touching on a few things this evening. People want to talk about the Women's Soccer World Cup in 2031. Yeah, and I did not tonight. I don't have time for that. I mean, if there's anything to talk about when it comes to association football, it would have been the announcement this evening from the African Federation, CAF, announcing that they have taken the Cup of Nations away from Senegal, and now Morocco is the of the champions of Africa, with a 3-0 score line because they had forfeited they walked off the field, if you remember that. Why it took so long, I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. But they'll be taking that to the court for arbitration for sport. I believe that's what's going to happen with that case. But that's a different story. We'll get back to that. All right, so back to the Adjah Hajj situation and the kind of connection points that I want to talk about, and why this is a bigger issue that we've been touching on for a while. Let's get the few things out of the way. She tested positive for GW 501516, if my memory serves me correctly, which is, I think, is Caridine. So it's like a banned substance. It's been Dynamics. What's up? Good to see you. The AIU Athletics Integrity Unit says this is unintentional, right? So she ingested this. So that doesn't mean you don't get off. That doesn't mean you get off. Obviously, she did serve a time. She probably injected it recklessly or unknowingly. This is going to be an interesting situation as this case gets out into the public in more detail. And as a result of that, clearly Hodge would have lost her World Under 20 Championship gold medal from the 200 meters, and also lost the silver medal over the 100 meters, which she came second to the Jamaican athlete. Her name is slipping me right now. That I'm looking at right now. So those medals have been reassigned, but this is the same substance that's been involved in this ongoing investigation with Gerald Fury. And this is a bigger issue because, he's been provisionally suspended since 2025 because multiple athletes under his tutelage at the time were tested positive, right? Some serving a massive ban. We know the Asinga case. He's basically the one that has been hit the hardest so far, at least in terms of a public suspension. And he's serving a significant time off from the sport as a youngster. And so we'll get to kind of unpack that at some point. We'll figure out what happens with his case. But here's the thing: when Gerald Fury was provisionally suspended as of March of 2025, it's been a while now, right? It's been over a year. His situation was one in which he was not cooperating with any part of the investigation, and in fact, he was accused in terms of what we've seen for falsifying information, and a lot of these things is problematic in many ways. So I want to put this back in context in something that I've been talking about a long time, and I think we have a new Dynamics is saying Gerald Fury needs to be banned. He's provisionally suspended. But here's the thing: the bigger issue with him to Dynamics and everybody else on the live and the situation that I've been talking about is that he can actually go to jail, right? And so that's the interesting part of this whole situation, right? The whole I always say this, and I want to be clear about this, right? Nobody should be trying to take anything. I don't think it's bad for the sport, obviously. It's certainly bad when you have adults in the room giving children substances that they may or may not know that they're taking, right? So, and that is really a problem. So obviously, if we remember, he was the head coach at the time at Monteverde Academy. A lot of athletes were there. It was such a whole stealth move, if you guys remember the case, when the AIU announced it, his picture, his bio, everything was on the website. In a matter of hours, all of that was wiped off the Academy's website. And so we haven't heard anything. We don't know anything. We're not sure what's going on, except for the fact that we understand that he didn't cooperate. AIU at the time put that out. So we didn't know, but we knew about the Asinga case. Obviously, he lost his World U20 world record, and he's been suspended for a period of time. There's a lot of social media cry about whether he was handed something too harsh. We can always adjudicate all of that stuff. It's a tough one when we think about it. The claim too is that his team never really cooperated the way he should have. Now they've gone through the process of this court for arbitration for sport, all of that kind of stuff. Now back to Fury, and I want to make it clear because I think I'm riffing a little bit in terms of what's going on here. Rodchenkovac, right? We've talked about Rodchenkovac a lot. We saw recently with the Marvin Bracey case, the guy from Florida, Askew, has been arrested in conjunction for that. So Rodchenkovac, and I'll just belabor the point for those who don't remember it, was passed, is the first act was passed, after the Gregory Rodchenkov, who was the whistleblower during the whole Russian doping scandal. It basically is designed to go after the people providing performance-enhancing substances to athletes. It doesn't go after the athletes themselves. They go through the separate process of adjudication, which is handled, if it's track and field, through the Athletics Integrity Unit. And with all athletes, everything kind of stems through WADA, World Anti-Doping Agency, right? So you don't go after the athletes, but you go after their entourage. But the big thing in terms of, as we know, when it comes to athlete suspension and so on, is how much they cooperate. I've said it before, I said it again. You get tested positive, you get announced that there's an adverse analytic finding in your body. There's a whole process that goes through. And if we jump to one part of the process, once the investigators are there from AIU or wherever local agency, if you're in the United States, it's most likely going to be USADA, or if you're elsewhere, it's some other governing body that's in charge of anti-doping. They're going to ask you a boatload of questions. Everything, where you get it, how long you've been taking it, what's the protocol, do you know anybody else on it? It's a whole series of information that they're asking, all of which would, if you provide this to the investigators, now puts you in an opportunity to get a reduced sentence usually. A lot of athletes don't do this, right? They lie, they withhold information for a while, and sometimes they eventually give the information when they realize that everything is up against them. There's no chance of beating certain things. But the Fury thing is interesting because he's never been arrested at this moment, as far as we know. And it's not been announced. So the questions there, there's a lot of questions to be answered. And particularly what we're thinking about is he supplied this to the athletes. So as the kind of information that we've gotten out of Adjah's case so far suggested that she cooperated a lot, right? So she got off substantial time. That means they're in there singing every hymn sheet they have, they're singing, and she's singing loudly, she and her team, right? And which suggests that it's the classic prisoner's dilemma, I imagine, right? And maybe one team wasn't squealing, and once you start to squeal, your chances of of getting off or at least a reduced sentence in this, or suspension rather, in this case, increases substantially. And so what I want to know is, and we'll find it, we'll get this information at some point in time, you imagine, is will they go after Gerald Fury, right? Will the Rodchenkovac catch up with him? Because it's precisely the kind of legislation that was signed into law. This is what it's created for. We've only seen Eric Lira in the Blessing Akabari case been charged under the Rodchenkov Act. There's a whole situation with the Blessing Akabari thing, and he only served 3 months. And I thought that would have uncovered a bunch of other athletes. Turns out it never really did, at least not in the way that was abundantly clear to me and other people. And I spent a lot of time looking at the Akabari case. and the different co-conspirators, and we spoke to a lot of interesting people, and it just never add up. We've seen some spin-offs of it, including into Switzerland and other places. But I thought Lira would have been dropping a lot more athletes, and it wasn't abundantly clear that that happened. And then we didn't get anybody else until just recently with the Marvin Bracey situation, where he is serving a 45-month ban, as we all know. He's also off to the enhanced games, and that's a different story. But there have been, but the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, charged him in conjunction with obviously U.S. attorneys. Charge Askew. So we don't know how many more persons are involved, if this is a one-time situation with that guy. And then we knew about the Gerald Fury thing. And when it happened that day, I remember, I think I came live a year ago or so, if my memory serves me correctly, I was at that time saying, will they charge him? Will for supplying the athletes? And in this case, you have to think he was supplying minors too, because he was running, assuming there are a lot more athletes than the ones that we know about. And I think there are more, but we can't talk about them because a couple of things happen here whenever you have children that with situations when involving minors and probably other protected classes. You tend not to disclose everything. Good evening, Sonia. Good to see you. Yeah, so I'm wondering if he'll get caught up in a criminal investigation. I suspect they should have something on him, and whatever comes out of the Adjah Hajj case, even out of the Asinga case, and quite possibly the other people around, it may be just a matter of time before he gets charged, I imagine. But we have to wait and see there. But I don't know, right? So a lot of people have been kind of milling around. I know my good friend Leighton, I think he did something where people were asking him why it took so long before we heard about Adjah's case. I think I have probably a different perspective than what Leighton was saying. I think he's right in at least in some of the ways he put it across, I believe, on his channel, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I think why much of this is under wraps for such a long period of time is that I think they're likely were building testimony for a larger case around Fury and the kind of coaching infrastructure that was at that academy at the time, and potentially trying to unravel who was supplying these athletes with performance-enhancing substances. Now, from a clear kind of standpoint in terms of why we don't know much about Adjah's situation prior to after the suspension, I think it's fundamentally rests on this idea of them trying to build the case and trying to set up the networks. And so, it may be other people too. And also when you see situations where athletes get tested positive for one thing, there could be other things that when in the investigation, they may tell you they may have been taken, right? They're just going to try to run it to the very end, because one of the things about anti-doping and people going around the rules is that oftentimes they do things in sequence, or they microdose, or they do other things where it becomes a challenge for even the most sophisticated types of a testing protocol to catch people, right? So that's why I'm riffing again or going off. I'm a bit optimistic that once we get this kind of sprinters type of passport, which is similar to the biological passport that they have for distance runners, where you largely spend time looking at EPO type things and blood doping in a larger sense. They're working on things that might be able to provide better insight. But the testers are never really close all the time. Sometimes they do well, and then other people try to move the goalpost, and it's a problem. So, yeah. So I'm gonna explain that again. Hi, Raquel. Raquel is saying he needs a lifetime ban. I would agree as well. I think you see, I want to see everything unfold. Obviously, I want because I think there has to be a due process in how these things work. So I just want to make that abundantly clear. But you see, when you're dealing with children, when you're dealing with uh, that as well, I think there's a higher bar as well, right? Like there is just such an impressionable sense. They're kids. They listen to you. You have a bigger responsibility. You know, the problem with athletics, not the problem, but the structure of athletics is that it's anything you ingest in your body belongs to you, right? This is the kind of standard that everyone understands in the sport. How it gets, it doesn't matter how it gets in there. You're responsible. You have to then prove that it got in there inadvertently or by mistake, and different situations. We saw, on a side note, we've seen the situation with the American hurdler who, she didn't get a therapeutic exemption for her case, and she's now, in a way, provisionally suspended, I suspect. And she talked about, trusting her doctor and thinking that or I think it was an acne medicine, it was okay and it wasn't on a banned substance, and that's also problematic, right? And I don't disagree. I don't think she's lying or anything like that, but you have to take the extra steps, right? Like sometimes your doctor alone isn't good enough to say this will work. Sometimes you have to go out there as an athlete and do extra work and say, look, I'm going to apply for a therapeutic exemption, and let them tell you that you don't need one, right? This is the kind of situation. But back to this, just to close out on this note, where what I think happened here is when you think about when you are provisionally suspended and when we have to make public, right? In the case of what they call non-specified substances, I think that's the title if my memory serves me correctly. Things like anabolic steroids, things like EPO, those once you get tested positive for one of those things, it carries with it a mandatory provisional suspension, and that usually is imposed right away. Sometimes and I think the idea of that sometimes immediately gets up to the level of public knowledge, right? So the AIU will typically update their processes for provisional suspensions, and we've seen it, and people will go and fight that case. When you get some of these kind of stimulants or I think they call them specified substances. I have to check again if my memory serves me correctly. You do things you can pick up in your pill bottles or in your energy drink or some kind of thing you buy in a supermarket that may create make you test positive for something. Those, are the athletes can start to accept right away. You can get time off for time served. It doesn't always have to come public. It takes a while sometimes in the way in which they process that. And so I think part of a Hodge's case comes under that kind of a framework, right? And athletes go through the whole process. You get an adverse analytic finding. They oftentimes will say, let's get their B sample, right? 99% of the time. I think I have to check the AIU records on this again, or WADA rather. I think last year's WADA report suggests that I think it's over 90% or so B samples come back the same way as A samples, right? And you're just checking to see if there are mistakes or something happened. And then the whole process goes through, right? You get a negative B sample, then it's done. Right, but positive, you have to start going through this kind of process. The AIU does these formal notification things. There's a timeline. You have to then get a panel adjudicated. Sometimes you can get the panels to go faster if you're getting close to a major championships, like say the World Championship or the Olympics and all of that, right? And yeah, so I think in the case of her, all of this stuff is handled in a way. She got a reduced ban. She provides substantial assistance. So that means she's squealing. She's telling them everything. And for their liking, they think her ingestion was unintentional, right? So I hope this doesn't necessarily stain her, right? If we believe everything that to be true at this moment, the things that the AIU is saying, she's cooperating, and they don't think it was intentional. And we also have to remember our age at the time and all of that stuff. So we'll see what happens, right? The bigger question lies in the coaching apparatus, the network, the people around her, and what they may have been giving them, these athletes. And it's sad, and it also is sad that it comes on the heels of her tremendous performance at the NCAA indoor championships in Arkansas. But it's one of those things you have to fess up to it. I suspect she knew it was going to come at some point, but it's one of those moments for Adjah Hajj. But importantly, I think the bigger issue around it is what can we do to figure out the larger role of that coach, because his case is just kind of sitting right now, at least from our perspective, because we don't have any more information that's public to suggest that he's had a change of heart since failure to cooperate early on, and they'll probably be building this massive case. I suspect he's gonna get two situations gonna happen to him at the end. He'll probably get one of those suspensions that may suggest that he never coaches again. That could be what happens, and then he'll have to take that to CAS at some point. And more seriously, especially because he's in the United States, and when this happened, and you don't necessarily have to be in the United States either for the Rodchenkov Act to follow you, he could also be subject to some criminal charges. So we'll see. Let's get to, so Geraldine said, Raquel said he should get a lifetime ban. I think I touched on that. Jules is saying, how did she know that the drug was slipped in her drink? Now, that's a very good question. I don't know. I mean, it's a very good question, right? Like, it could also be like, take this drink, right? Or it's there and you don't know, right? I don't know. It's I want to see some more of this report. I guess we'll talk more about it at some point, but I guess there's enough evidence for them to say it was unintentional, the way her consumption of it. But yeah, it's never good though. It's never good. It's gonna be one of those things that will kind of follow around for a while. Already, people make a lot of assumptions on this already, and rightly so. Or it could be wrong, obviously, but it's the kind of thing, right? You get a stain and it sticks with you, especially if the explanation seems weak. But in this case, I don't know if this will stick for a long period of time. It's going to certainly be there for a while, but she's very young, and so our time in the sport will be is quite long as long as she stays healthy. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, see what happens. All right, so yeah, enough of that. I wanted to touch on that for sure and talk about it. And since we're kind of in the context of the NCAA, there are so many wonderful performances there. You let me know your thoughts on it, anything you want to touch on in particular. But if I wanted to pull a couple things, obviously Hodge looked good over NCAA in our 200 meters. Didn't quite do as well over the 100, over the 60 rather. I think they did that for points, obviously. The Jamaican got the better of her, substantially better than her, Shanice. But I think the standout performance for me, there are so many good performances at the NCAA Indoor Championships, but I think Garrett Kaland, 1995, was quite possibly the best thing all weekend. It's, the 200 meters is not something that we see a lot on. No one really runs that on the circuit. It's not an event that will be at the World Indoor Championships for obvious reasons. We've discussed this before, but for those who don't remember or need a refresher, the studies suggest that, like, if you're in the outer lanes, you're going to have an advantage, right? So they don't run that event, right? And we've seen what will happen at the 400 meters coming up in the World Indoor Championships, how they've changed it to these semifinals and best of kind of a two race things, and we've already seen it on the circuit and also in a collegiate structure this year. So there's this kind of acknowledgement that the indoor tracks, there's a fair amount of disadvantage for some based on lane draws, especially on the one lap around events. Yeah, but that was a fabulous performance. 1995, very close to breaking Frankie Frederick's record of 1993, which was set 30-something years ago. And at one point the clock was spinning as if he almost broke it, and he didn't. But that was a spectacular performance from that kid. We saw him, was at a Big Ten championships, and he looked really good. So these are bright prospects to run sub 20 in indoors is a superb performance. So there's nothing you could say. I think that probably was one of the highlights of the championships for me. You let me know. Ferdinand, what's going on? It's kind of late in South Africa. Are you on an early rise? Late to bed or early rise? Good to have you on. Hopefully you're doing well. Yeah, Jakobi Thorp, I'll talk about him too. And also Ogazi. I think those are some really good performances, equaling the kind of world indoor 400-meter record there for Ogazi at 44:57, and obviously Thorp doing 7:32. But let's talk about Thorp. I want to talk about it in the context of where this kid could be maybe later on this year, where he could be next year. Because honestly, I don't know what to say, but I was having back and forth conversations with a bunch of different people on this too, and some people you might know. But is he better than as a talent than say a Grant Holloway? Right? I mean, this guy is special kind of an athlete, right? He's already arrived in the context of he knows what it's like to be at a national stage. He won the U.S. championships last year. He also was in the final of the 110-meter hurdles in Tokyo. Didn't medal, but it was a long season for him as well, and it was one of those situations there where he's a kid, right? And he returned to college, and he's gone out and he runs 7:32 to win the NCAA title. And I mean, that's a collegiate record, but not only a collegiate record, that's the third fastest time we've ever seen. Only Grant Holloway's world record of 7:27, and Colin Jackson, the great Colin Jackson. I think I saw something on Colin Jackson earlier this week where he says he finally took out his medals. I don't know what I was seeing. I don't know if I saw that Athletics Weekly or it was on maybe the BBC or something like that. He was on a podcast recently, but Colin Jackson did his 7:30 in 1994. That's a very long time ago. And so when you keep in company like that, you're special. And we have to put that in context. We're talking about he's now gone up in front of some of the all-time greats. Your Darrell Robles, former world record holder for the big Cuban there. Alan Johnson, Terence Trammell, who had a lot of time for, people like Greg Foster, if you want another era as well. So he's now transcended again. And I don't think there's weaknesses in the kid, to be honest with you, that we can really see. I think he's really strong right through. I really think he could run 12:8 soon. And I know I'm pushing it and I don't want to put pressure, but there's no real pressure because the kid has already done big stuff outdoors last year, and he went to World Championships and went to the final. So there's a level of expectation, but you have to think he'll run sub 13 for sure. Can he push up against those low 12.9s into the 12.8s? We'll have to see. But he's big time. Brian is in the house. Let me see. Let me switch you over here so I can read this correctly. Would that meet score an all-time like the World Athletics dude? Would that? Ah, you mean I don't know if I understand what you mean. Like you mean on the books, like what where it would rank in terms of the timing? The 1995. I have to check. I don't know where there's those. You mean the World Athletics tables? I haven't looked at it to be honest with you, but it's certainly up there, right? I mean, it, only Frankie Fredericks has gone better if we're talking about the 1995, and then yeah, what he's done in and then back to Thorp. Yeah, certainly he's a very clean hurdler. He looks good. The kid is built well. I think he's gonna. You never want to call a world record, but because he hasn't done anything yet to suggest. No, he hasn't done anything yet, and the world record is one thing. Clearly, he runs for the United States. It's one of the harder teams to make, but there's a lot of opportunity for him this year. There's no major championship. I suspect he could get on the circuit. I would, if he can. We'll see him outdoors at the NCAAs this year, and I think he's gonna be, top class athlete. I think he can run 12. He's improved from last year already, and if we assume that the progression is heading in the right direction, I was about to say linear, but probably linear a little bit. You expect as he's going to run 12.9 this year, and then it's a question about if the conditions are right, can he go down to something much faster than that, right? And I wouldn't put it past him. I'm just going to wait to see. But I think he's the next great hurdler coming out of the United States. And they have a lot, right? They have the world champion right now. This is a situation where they've done really, really well. But he's pushing through in an interesting way. And I want to see what happens as he transitions next year. But, 732, he's not in the conversation. He's right there amongst the very best. And who knows, right? He could, what we might get out of him in a year or two as he improves. But yeah, he's certainly a top class athlete. All right. I want to take it on the road a little bit before we kind of jump around. I know we've been, here, almost 40 minutes already, and we can touch on a few things for the World Championships coming up this week. And I'll be definitely doing some watch-alongs, as I said, for the evening sessions for sure. I'll try to see if we can do some recaps on the morning session, but it should be exciting for the World Indoor Championships. But before we get that, let's go on the road a little bit, because this performance is one of them. Let me see what Brian is saying before I go. The NCAA Indoor Championship meet was one of the best overall performance for a lot of the events relative to any other major indoor championships. Okay, I'm glad that you're saying this. Yeah, let's. This is a good point. There are times where the performances indoors at the US NCAAs sometimes are better than some of the performances at the World Indoor Championships. I don't believe it's going to be the case where all of that will happen this time. Will we get someone running 7.32 in the hurdles? I don't know, right? But there's going to be high quality athletes there. I think over the hunt, even when you think about the 60 meters that happen at the NCAAs, Adjah looking good, but I think Jordan Anthony will be there, obviously. Who knows what Kishane Thompson can do if he runs really well, but Azu, I don't know if Azu can run 6.4s, but I think you'll get some top class performances. The 400, I'm not sure. I think the 400 meters at, it might be running in 50, and I don't know if anyone will run faster than what we saw, the performances we saw from Dejeuner Oakley on the weekend, but it may happen. The 400 meters for women is kind of wide open, and I was thinking about my predictions. I don't really know. Perhaps Henrietta Jager might be the woman to beat. I mean, obviously, Lika Klava will be there. Buka Vecchia is on home side, but she hasn't really been doing much. And I mean, and a lot of performances are a little bit earlier for some of these athletes. So it's kind of hard to gauge indoor. And, historically, we used to make the claim that not every top athlete shows up at the World Indoor Championships, but I think there's enough world-class, top class talent that shows up now that I don't think we can make that argument anymore. And a lot of people are taking indoors much more seriously. And there's certainly some athletes who sometimes perform a little bit better indoors, so they take this as their chance to be on top of the world for a weekend or two. And so as a spectacle, I imagine it's going to be a better spectacle overall than, say, the NCAA championships. And I could go back. I mean, I watch the NCAA championships for almost every event. I think it was brilliant. But when you think about what will happen in the likes of the 800 meters, I mean, Keely Hutchinson is going to show up on the men's side. You're going to get Cooper Lochtenhaus, Josh Howie, whatever. It's going to be 3,000 meters, Josh Kerr, a bunch of top-class athletes going to be there. Field events should be stacked. Mondo should be there. His name is on the list, so there's going to be better performances overall than the NCAA. But as a spectacle, the NCAA was a top-class event. It's one of the better indoors I've seen in a while, but that could be recency bias, to be honest with you. So I'm not quite sure what to make of it, if I'm actually correct on that. But I think we will get a lot of performances that will warm the heart at this year's thing. Yeah. He's on the list, to be honest with you, Tom, Brian. When I looked at I don't have it right now. I think I have to look for it. I think his name was on it. Yeah. Let me see. I think I have the PDF here. What's his name? Mondo. Let's see. Duplantis. His name is there for the pole vault. He's registered. I don't know if he'll be there though, but I suspect he's there unless he pulls out. There's athletes that pull out at the last minute and they haven't released the start list for everything, but his name was in the original sheet that was sent into World Athletics, along with Emmanuel Carolis and Sandra Guttenson. So this is going to be fabulous. I think if all of these guys show up, the pole vault is going to be, I don't know what the kids are saying these days, but it's going to be one of the events to see. As we know, Mondo broke the world record last week at the Mondo Classic, 6:31. Carolis already with a 6:17, and Gutterson did 6:06, and even Bradford from the United States joined the 6-meter club. I'm not seeing that kid that did what's his name? Volkov, I think. He's not on the thing right now, but anyway, he also joined the 6-meter club. All right. Yeah, so those are kind of, we'll get back to some of that if we have time tonight. If not, we'll do another one in a few, 6:30. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Will he break the world record again? I mean, I don't know if he'll break the world record again, but he just broke the world record the other day. I wouldn't put it past him to break the world record again. He's Mondo, But what I think will happen is it's going to be competitive, and you're going to have you're going to have a bunch of Curtis Marshall too, should be there from Australia, 6-meter clubman too. It will be nice in terms of a competition where Mondo may have to step in a little bit earlier than normal. It's one of those things we often say. He sleeps through these performances. He waits for people to struggle around 590, then he shows up. It's a different set of pole vaulters this year, so he may have to come in a bit earlier. If he's not on his A game, people could take it away from him. And I think Carolis might be much better than the 6:17 that he delivered. He tried a world record attempt when he did the 6:17. Didn't quite get it. So I don't know what will happen, but it would be great to see if they're duking it out for a world record. Should be interesting. All right. I want to go off the road. I'll go on the road a little bit and talk about this. So bear with me because, track and field, road is great. I always advocate for people to go on the road to run because there's a lot of money to be had there. So I want to talk about the Barcelona Marathon that happened this past weekend as well. So Foytian Tesfay making her marathon debut, 2 hours 10:51. when I saw that, because I saw I didn't, honestly, I wasn't watching the Barcelona marathon. It was a bit early. I saw clips of parts of it, and I was like, what? I mean, I almost fell out of my chair, and I was like, that is outrageous. That's the second fastest woman in history. It's the fastest marathon on debut as well. There's all these kind of first there. And when we put this in context, she's just like, what is it, 55 seconds outside of the world record by Ruth Chepngetich, 209.56. Yeah, it's 56. Yeah. And we know what happens to that world record, obviously. Chepngetich has the world record. She's currently serving a suspension for a doping violation. It doesn't go back to when she broke the world record, so that's on the books. There's all the speculation that she probably was, doping while she was breaking that world record. We can't test for that. We don't have any information to say she was, except for gut feeling and thinking through the issue. But this was even more impressive than I thought it was, right? At 10K, she was at 31:05, half marathon 1:05:05, and she was on world record pace until, I guess, a little bit of a hiccup with the wind. And this is a spectacular performance in many ways, right? This is a woman that used to run on the track. She doesn't have any major medals. She's medal at the Olympics, over 10,000 meters. Not medal, she's finished top 10, I think, in 10,000 meters. She's also world championship finalist as well. And she did run a half marathon, so we knew there were a bit of signs here and there that potentially she could, when she steps up to the marathon, she would do something really, really special. And by God, she stepped out and she ran a time that, look, it puts her at second fastest ever. In some people's mind, it might be the world record given the whole situation with Chepngetich, but on the books, it won't be the world record. But you wouldn't put it past her to break the world record the next time. Now, if you follow the interview, she said she was on course to attack the world record. They want to do it. It just didn't happen this time. But I want to put a little bit of context around Tesfay a bit, because we're now in an era where we've seen the world record go so many times now. We go to Asifa and all these Tejas and obviously Chepngetich, which is, a kind of stain on the sport. Is that we're starting to wonder whether all of these things are legitimate, right? We know there's natural improvement that's happened over the time since Paula Radcliffe would have broken the world record 20-something years ago when she ran, 2:14 and change, if my memory serves me correctly. It's a different era. Super shoes dominates, and we know there are different studies on this. There's the UMass study. There's all these different studies that suggest you can get anywhere from 2 to 4% performance increase. It depends. It may not happen. That's just the kind of estimates based on what the tests they've done on these things. We know that it's just the training programs have improved. We understand sports science a bit better in terms of marathon preparation. The athletes run it much more different than they would have 20 years ago. The bicarb is the gels rather is such a revelation too for the athletes. If you remember when the gels came out in the early stages, it used to upset their stomachs. No, it doesn't. The time release on it is just a different level of a way in which they think about releasing it. So the athletes actually run much different. So all of that suggests that, marathon times are going to improve, right? But in the midst of that, we still see that there are a lot of questions. There are a lot of, sports scientists who suggest that maybe we're not quite at the era where athletes should be running, 209s or 210s yet, but I just don't really know. And in fairness to this woman, she's never tested positive for anything. And we kind of saw that she was going to do a great run at some point, or half marathon times, third, as I mentioned earlier, third fastest ever, suggested that when she stepped up, she was going to do a big thing, right? And she comes from a kind of group where they're known for marathon running, right? What's the coach's name slipping me right now? But they've produced a number of athletes. I think it's Didfo, I think his name is. I'm butchering that for sure. I have to Google it again. But there's it's a high quality athletes come out there, and we saw these performances coming. So we shouldn't. Yeah, I don't want to. I know there's a shadow because you talk to people in the background and they're like, yeah, I just can't trust what's happening in on the road. And we've seen a lot of great performances on the road. A couple of weeks ago, to Kiplima Brook took back his half marathon record, and it's just gonna continue to improve in ways that we haven't seen in a while, right? And you just hope that they're clean. There's no indication that she's not, and it's not like she came out of nowhere to do this. And we must remember, and I'm doing this off the top of my head since it's been months since we did the Chepengetich thing, which happened like last June, July, I think, in 2025. She was much. She's an old athlete. Her performances had dwindled, and all of a sudden she started kicking up some different times that were just like breaking all these records. It kind of gave you an indication that something wasn't right, but no one could actually put a finger on it until they actually did. So in this case, I'm not seeing any uproar or anybody saying, well, we got to watch out for this one. But you never know, right? This is the kind of thing with the sport. Once people, it's the clean athletes sometimes suffer with the unclean athletes, right? Because of, not with them, but because of them, rather, in terms of the eyes that come up and how people view you and so on. So I don't know. We'll have to see. But that was a stunning performance. I don't know if you guys watched it, but if you haven't, you can see the last part of it too. The women's marathon is gonna, if she continues this way, it's gonna go. And I don't know where Sifana San is, if she's gonna touch some more. I mean, there's all these questions. At what point does Faith Kipyegon go on the road, right? At what point does Beatrice, well, I know Beatrice Trebet is young. She's on maternity leave now. She'll probably stick around for a while. But when do they go on the road? When, the likes of a Gudaf Sagai, if they take the road seriously. Athletes who we know are genuinely much faster than some of these athletes when they do step on the road, which invariably they normally would do, especially if they're healthy and they can do the miles. There's a lot of money to be had. We're talking about $100,000 prizes, and that's different, separate and apart from appearance fees for marathons. They pay a lot. Brian, you're getting hail up on the channel here. I think that's Devon Bean 3159 is saying hi to you. So you're famous. All right, guys. What else you guys want to talk about? Are you ready for Friday? I know it's almost an hour and it's getting late on my end too. But are you ready for Friday? In terms of the World Indoor Championships, I can touch on a few things. Oh, there's one performance of the weekend that I saw out of Jamaica that I liked. Sabrina Dockery there running that 11:13, into a slight headwind. At that GC, was it GC Foster the race was? I saw it on the internet. I wasn't watching the meet. To be honest with you, I was watching other things, but it's good. 11:13. It's early. She looked decent. The camera angle I saw wasn't the greatest, but what can we say, right? Like I think I was texting late and I was saying, look, the one thing the women don't do in Jamaica is disappoint. They have always produced a healthy turnover, and you think about her, you think about all the youngsters that are coming through. Champs coming up next week. You'll see some more. So we might get a 10-8 at Champs. So who knows if we'll get a 10-8 at Champs? But I'm a little bit worried if that were to happen. But yeah, there's a lot of, the Jamaican talent is always, excellent, and we'll see what Shania Douglas does next week. Dynamics is saying, yeah, he's looking forward to it. He has a baby shower to go. He'll miss the live, but watch on Saturday. Yeah, you gotta, don't get in trouble now. But I put these things on the calendar. Luckily my wife is in Spain right now, so she was saying to me, it's a good thing she's not at home, so that way, I can do whatever I want. But I was always going to watch track and field anyway. That's what I said to her, so I'm not saying anything I wouldn't get in trouble for. All right. 60 meters stacked. It certainly is stacked dynamics. Let's talk about that. I don't know what we will get at this. I am hoping for a world record. Can we get a world record? I think we can. It depends. But we're looking at, a couple weeks ago, I was adamant that I don't necessarily think anyone could compete with Julian Alfred. She's going. We saw that. Obviously, Dasso has the same time as her, 6:99. Those are the two fastest times in the world. And should we write Dasso off? No, we can't. I think she's a special athlete this year in terms of the 60. She's getting better. I saw some training clips of her a few weeks back in terms of how she's getting out of the blocks. All of the things that you want to see Dasso is doing, and she's proven it so far. So if you were to kind of do a little ranking, you're like, it's the Alfred show with Dasso. If we go back, was it in Arkansas when they had that false start thing and she had to run them down? Julian, that is, or was it Arkansas? Wu Pig, it may have been, or it could be another week, or it could have been Clemson. All of those things are running in my mind right now. I am pretty sure that at that point in time, Julian was gonna run a ridiculous time. And so if you were to string, you give people rope, I think she has a lot more than everybody else in terms of, what she can do. But I want to say Dasso is in the mix for sure. Thinking about Sears, she looks super good as well. Dean Asher-Smith wasn't bad. Amy Hunt on the list. I think she ran really well. Van der Verken for me too. It's a tough field. I don't really know what to say about the predictions. I was mulling around it earlier today. I totally forgot all the things that I was thinking about, but I'm pretty comfortable saying I think Julian will win. I think she'll beat Dasso unless something goes bad. And we've seen her have a terrible start and run down, was it Sears and Brianna Liston, if my memory serves me correctly. I just don't bet against Julian. I don't bet against a fit Julian Alfred. That's how I think about it, Gambit is saying, Julian, if you want a world record, yeah. Will we get a world record? I'm not quite sure, but we could. I think she's primed for it. She's up there. She's one of the all-time, when you think about people who've gone sub-7, Julian has done it a few times, so she's up there. Brian is saying, yes, it was Arkansas with the bad start. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. Simon, is it Simon or Simeon? Julian has not lost a single 60-meter race since 2022, and she's not about to let one up. World record is going to happen. I like the confidence. I agree on that. I have nothing to disagree with that. I don't bet against Julian Alfred. I don't think the rest can compete if she's in the kind of form that we know she can be in, right? So we'll see what we get, but she's top class athlete. I think Privalva's world record of 6:92 could certainly go, and I think Irina wouldn't be disappointed that it goes. She set that record such a long time ago. But yeah, it's gonna be good. I mean, I don't think Kambunji is defending her title. As the last time I checked, I know she's back in training, but I didn't look to see if she's on the list. But I think Van der Verken for me was running really well this season. I think she could be in the mix as well. But we'll see. Can a Jamaican spring a surprise and get on the podium? Not quite sure. I wouldn't put it against Sears too to be in the mix for a medal, but I think it's Julian's race to lose, and we'll see. Yeah. Gambit says even MJW would not beat Julian in her 60. She's born to break the world record. Like the confidence on that. Debbie, what's going on? Good to see you. And Debbie saying hi to everybody. Yeah, I'm fairly confident that I think that Julian will pull this off, and we'll see what happens. Right, there's some really good athletes this season, running well. Those low sevens. Amy Hunt did really well. Dina Asher-Smith. So it's going to be a stacked field, but it should be good. That's going to be. I'm trying to. It's going to be on day 2. Let me check this. Yeah, it's day 2. So the final is going to be day 2, 60-meter women's final. Day 1 is the men's final. Debbie is saying don't be surprised if Julian lost. I would be surprised, Debbie, to be honest with you. And I think that would be the sentiment of a lot of people, despite what we've seen from. Well, first, you tell me who would you put who could beat her if you had to make that call right now. I suspect you. I don't know if you would say Dasso. I mean, Dasso has been looking really good this season, but honestly, I just don't think I can look past Julian in this situation. But you let me know and we can unpack some of that stuff. On the men's side, that's going to be interesting. I think that's where anything can happen. I want to say I would go with the Jordan Anthony kid. I like this performance at the US Championship. It was kind of a pressure cooker environment, if you want to put it that way. Noah Lyles was there running his mouth off a lot. And in all fairness, Noah's mouth can make some people jittery. Not everybody, but he's getting to a stage where he has to think about that right now. I'm sure he's probably on a honeymoon or is getting married soon or something like that. But that's for a different day. But I know that joke didn't land well. But I think Anthony, for me, starts slight favorites. The defending champion is there, the Great Brit, but I don't think he's gonna be. I'm gonna get back to that in a second, Debbie. But I don't think Azu can beat Anthony. It is not quick enough this season for me. But you never know, right? You never know. You have the likes of a Trevor Bromell. What can Kishane Thompson do? He has that outdoor run. He's run a couple of good races. A couple of them he was getting run down, but he didn't quite beat him. Akeem Blake, he's been on the podium from previous iteration as well. Certainly also had a good World Indoor season. He collected the prize. He got the buy. He got the money as well. So I think it's more open for me when we think about the men's section of the 60 meters. Let me know your thoughts on that. But that's how I think about it. I when I look at the quality of the athletes there, I think anything can happen. There's some great college kids. I mean, Adjah this season was really good. 6:45, I think. 6:4. Did he go quicker than that? Probably 6:45. I don't believe he's going. The last time I checked, unless someone can tell me otherwise, but I don't know if he'll be there. I don't think he's going to be there. But for the guys that are going to show up, it's going to be an interesting race. Let me get back to some of these things, because first I want to touch on what Debbie's saying. So let's go back to the 60 meter for women. We might get a surprise. Jonelle Smith is in the form of light. I'm glad that you brought up Jonelle, because this is what happens when I just do this off the top of my head today. Jonelle has been having a season that you really hope that this year was going to be a major championship, because we saw her indoors, we saw her outdoors, and she's been running really well. And she ran down the Clayton twins. She's running down a lot of people. I like her a lot. And she's back to form, and all indications is that she's healthy, she's happy, she's training really well, she's getting stronger, all the kind of stuff that most of you probably know and probably see if you're close, if you get access to it. I think Jonelle could get on the podium. I would not be surprised if she gets on the podium. In fact, I think she could upset and get on the podium. Is it going to be good enough to beat Julian? I wouldn't put my money on that one. But if it were to happen, Debbie, we'll start the show. We put your thumb. Send me your best picture. We'll put it up. I'm joking. We'll start the show with you if that were to happen. But I would not be surprised if she gets on the podium. I think there's a steely determination this year from Smith, and so let's see what we get there. Gambit is saying, my money on Trevon for 60. I love Noah, but he needs to be quiet sometimes. Bromell is that kind of guy that could do something, but I don't know, right? He looked good at the U.S. Championships. We know he's coming back from Vera setbacks. He could. He's a 6'4" guy too, so I wouldn't put it past him. Yeah. I like what I saw from the Anthony kid. He was a little bit of a bravado there. He was feeling the moment. Yeah, the Noah thing is interesting, just to kind of I don't want to belabor that point, but just to say, it's good for the sport. You run him out, you back it up. It makes sense. But you gotta make sure you back it up. And I think he's getting to a stage in his career where he probably can back it up a lot, especially over the 100 meters. And I still, I wonder if, what he said about oblique in Tokyo, if that's just not running through his head all the time. Or maybe he just says these things and he just moves on. But, he got thoroughly beaten at the U.S. Championships. He wasn't going to go to the World Indoors anyway, but I don't think he shows up not wanting to win either, right? Like, it's one of those things. Jareem beat him this year over, 300 meters to... Will it impact him? I don't know, but he likes to talk, and I guess it happens. Debbie's also saying she has Akeem for... I think you're saying Blake for the winner, Akeem Blake. That one I can't see, Debbie, but maybe you got to give me some insights on that one, to be honest with you. He's looked good this season, and he looked good in Boston. Was it Milrose too, and another European one? Yeah. But we'll see, we'll see. Dynamic says, I think 3 women go sub 7. It can happen, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I think you could even get more than 3 women. The problem is whether or not in a pressure environment like that, in an environment where you have to race your best, if that will happen. That's the only kind of a setback there. This is a championship environment. But when you look at the list of the athletes this season and what we saw from a bunch of them, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you, if you got 3 women getting below 7 seconds this season, because it's been one of those things. Because Van der Verken was very close this season, 7:01, 6:99 for both Alfred and Dosso. Sears was at 7:03. Amy Hunt has a 7:04. What can we say? Jonelle Smith obviously ran her 7:03 outdoors, but yeah, anything can happen, It could be 4. Debbie saying we were all saying last year about Julian for the win and she missed out. Yeah, it was interesting. I think she had an injury there, but nobody. I don't want. Yeah, no one was beating. It doesn't seem like anyone could have hung with MJW last year for sure. Yeah, so I will. Yeah, I get what you're saying, and you have Kisha and Akeem for the win. It would be interesting if Thompson pulls this off. I think it would also be a landmark moment for him too. I don't know what they're using indoors for, to be honest with you. But he is the Olympic and World Championship silver medalist. He's quicker than all of these guys, but they're not running 100. But so far he's been doing. He's run really well this season. He had to hold off a couple guys, likes of a Blake, like of a Brian Level as well. So I would say if you're Kishane Thompson, you have to like your chances. You look around at those guys and you like your chances, right? And you just don't know what his kind of pedigree could also do to the other athletes. So, I'm picking Jordan Anthony as one of the favorites because of, he's been running well this season, but it's his first year as a pro. To come out of the U.S. Championships is nothing to sneeze about, right? That's a big type of a performance. So maybe he doesn't have the nerves, but you put on that shirt and you stand up against some other guys who've been there before, people who've been on the podium, and the beauty about it, you're getting back people from the podium last time as well. Yeah, it could shift things a bit. Yeah. And Debbie's saying Dossel getting nothing. Yeah, we'll see. I hope. I have no fear. I don't have any sentiment, obviously, when it comes to athletes from other countries. But I like Dossel. I think she's been around the block for a little bit. Our problem isn't indoors. Our problem usually is outdoors. So, but from what I've seen this season so far, and what I've been hearing, it could be a breakout year for her, but we have to wait and see. A breakout year for her might just mean she's running 10.8s or high 10.8s or 10.9s consistently, which doesn't really strike fear in anybody at the very top of the sport. So we'll see. Yeah. And you're not seeing anything from Anthony this season, Debbie's also saying. Yeah, the kid is fresh. I like what he's doing. I don't really know he's in a good training camp, and I heard he responds to training well, and he also is talking a little bit. He was a little bit hype after the US trials, and he says it's young people's time, to paraphrase him a bit. So we'll see what we get out of him. But yeah, it's gonna be fabulous, guys. I know I've been running the live for a long, so I probably won't stay much longer. But there's a lot of top class things to look forward to. I think we could get an assault. I don't know if we'll get an assault on the women's 800 meter world record again from Keela Hutchinson, but would I put it past her? I don't. I wouldn't. But it's a different setup to do it in a championship as well. But it's going to be interesting. The first day, we'll get the 60-meter finals. I'm just looking at it. We'll get some semifinals for men's 400 meters. That's going to be an interesting thing. Triple jump final on day 1, too. What's the guy? Trekkie, and I think Jordan Scott in the mix. I think Handy Hernandez is there. There's a few of the people that we know and could be there, but not many of them have given any kind of standout performances that outside of a few of the athletes that we've seen compete this season. So we'll have to wait on that one. Women's shot put final, that's going to be a banger. I think that is something that we have to look forward to. We're talking about Sierra Mitten, Chase Jackson, Yemesis, Ogunleye did a 20 meters this season as well. The Dutch woman, oh my God. Her name is slipping me right. Yeah, all of these athletes are. I think that's going to be an event of the championship. So I wouldn't sleep on that. and I don't know why I'm not remembering people's names, to be honest with you. Uh, but Jessica Schilder, yeah. She has a 2069, a couple of era records. Chase Jackson's 2095. So who knows? Can we get a 21 meters? I don't know. But we are going to have 4 women that are capable of doing a high 20 meters over the same, over the shot put. So it's going to be good. Debbie's saying Devon Charlton for the win. That's going to be a cracking race, to be honest with you. The women's 60-meter hurdles, it's gonna be nasty. Would I put it past Devon? No, but you never know, right? Top class athletes this season. We're gonna, Kambunji came out and she wasn't in shape yet, and she looked good running 778 earlier this season too. Pia Striowska. There's athletes there. Vissa, you can never count out. Yeah, we'll see. It's gonna be an interesting thing. But Charlton is the world record holder. She was getting into form in the latter part of the World Indoor Tour, so perhaps she's the one to beat, I imagine. But it's gonna be tighter than we think. But I'm looking forward to that. I think that's gonna be a really, really, really top class event as well. Yeah, cool. All right, guys, I'm going to call it because it's after 10 my time, or I don't know, wherever you guys in the world. But I will be back later on this week. Maybe we try to catch another preview before the championships on Friday. But if not, I'll get to see you guys on the weekend, because I'm going to do a watch along, and we'll try to get some recaps afterwards as well, and some other live shows, because it's World Indoor Championship. It's been my pleasure hanging out with you guys, and I'll see you guys soon. Enjoy a baby shower there, Dynamics, and everybody. You guys take care. Thanks again for supporting the channel and for liking and subscribing, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.